First thing is, in Australia we use third angle projection. Now I have a way of remembering how to draw third angle projection. Right? There's a symbol. Now, target starts with a T, flag starts with an F. If it's third angle projection, you'll see the target first. If it's first angle projection, which they use in France, in stinky France, right, they use the flag. Now, the flag is always drawn like a less than sign. Yeah, you could always fit a less than sign in there. However, it helps you to remember it, but in Australia we use third angle projection, which means we draw the target and then we draw the flag. That's how I remember it. Now, I would say draw that symbol, right? It's worthwhile to draw that symbol. I have marked people down for not drawing that symbol. Now, that means in Australia we always draw, right? We always draw the top view on top and then the front view below it. That's what makes this projection what it is. This is what we use in Australia. So on the top, I want to say, well, what will my toaster look like on the top? Now you could measure off dimensions on the drawing, but really it's relative. Do they ask you for a scale? It says freehand. I don't think they're going to be too upset about scale. It does matter if things are wildly out, though. If things are wildly out. Now, I have in that toaster, I also have 2 slices for the toast, right? And some attention to detail is important. And then I have this rounded edge on the sides. Okay? This question's worth, what, 7 marks? It's quite a few marks for a drawing. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw lines straight down. Can you see how I'm drawing these lines straight down? And these are what we call construction lines. I never rub them out, but they're not really supposed to be there. They're just very, very light drawings. Now, some people will tell you should use a 2H pencil for this. I'm going to tell you, just let your pencil glide over the paper. Now, I'm taking a bit of a risk putting that on video. Right? I'm going to say, just let your pencil glide over the paper as lightly as you possibly can. Now, once you've got a bit of a gap, you need to write some words here. So you want a bit of a gap, and you might have to draw dimensions. So you need a bit of a gap. Then, lightly guide your pencil out in the other direction. That's going to be the top line and your side view as well.
Whereabouts?
I like to leave about 20 to 30 millimeters as gap, so that I can label and put dimensions around the outside. Now, once I've got that line, I can then go back over and I can darken that line. Now, is there a rounding? There is there. Okay. So I'm going to go round and round, and then I'm going to go back down here. So you can see the difference in the thickness of my line here. Now, we're not going to colour in anything. We're not going to render, is the more appropriate term to use in engineering. We're not going to render anything. I just want to get the general shape. Now, that line there, that's a little bit high. I might redraw that again, but otherwise I'm pretty happy. Now, I have to show the toast section. Now, there's ways we can show in the future. We're going to talk about how we cut sections in half and we show what it looks like in the middle. Here, we're just going to show some hidden detail, right? Because it said show as much detail as possible. So we're going to show where the toaster slot goes. Now I'm going to say it goes to there. Now you can see this is a broken line. This is called hidden detail. It's a broken line. And the broken line is thick and dark, but it doesn't, my broken line, it's a broken line. Thick and dark and broken. Yeah? Now, you can see how all of those dimensions line up. Yeah, this line here is a vertical line. They're not all over the place. You will lose marks if your shape is all over the place. So just to draw that, if I drew it like this, if you drew that, you would lose marks. Now, another thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see people feathering their lines. So what that means is I don't want, let's say you rubbed it out, I don't want people to do this. Now, somewhere along the line in art, I don't know, some people talk about feathering lines. Even freehand, pick a line, run with it, draw it. Now, it says freehand. You are allowed, even in HSC, even though they say freehand, you are allowed to use a ruler, right? But don't feather, right? Feathering is bad. Do not feather. Now, we also want to avoid rubbing out unless we've made a real mistake. So drawing construction lines, lines that are to help you, are fine. They're A-OK. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to draw my construction line, and like I said, I just glide my pen over the line. Now, what we do with orthogonal drawings like this is we do this technique. Now I don't want to talk about too much now, but basically we extend these lines out and draw a 45-degree line out. That will give us the right dimensions here as well. Now, if we've got a handle, we do, let's just draw that as my handle. But then I'm going to show my toast slice. Now, what are some things I've been looking for? One, I have to see a difference between your light lines and your dark lines. Up here, I can't really see a difference. Yeah, the light lines and dark lines, I can see a difference in thickness, and that's okay, that's enough. But down here, we can really clearly see a difference between my light and dark lines. I added ink to my pen to make the lines really clear. That's one mark. Two is the shape. You have to have these things directly line up one in front of the other. That's second mark. Third mark is line work. If I see feathering, you lose a mark for feathering, right? 4, I want to see that you have put dashed lines, right? So you put your hidden detail lines. Your hidden detail lines should be thick, dark lines. 5, I want labels, right? Now, it doesn't say here, but for 7 marks, I want a label. So I want here to see the word front view.
Check it out.
Isn't that like a bird's eye?
Oh, so this is top view. Whoops. That's embarrassing.
It is.
Oh,
Do you have to put in those lines there?
and something.
Now, in Australian standards, I would suggest to you that you want to have your lines be, ready? 3.5 millimeters tall. Yeah? Your letters should be 3.5 millimeters tall.
Yeah.
Now, if you went with 4, I'm not going to care. Right? So here, typically people do very light lines. That wasn't very light, but obviously you can imagine this is a lot harder on a whiteboard.
So now folks are wondering that.
Okay, so that's what we're up to 6. Your lettering should be as neat as you can, capitals. Now, I would probably just accept that in writing. Here, I'm happier. There, it's getting a bit sloppy. Right, it shouldn't be lowercase. Right, so when you label. Now, ideally, for 7 marks, I would be asking for 1 dimension. Right? Now, 1 dimension. When we dimension, we want thin, dark lines, which is even harder to draw. Now, when we draw thin, dark lines, the dimension lines never touch the drawing, right? And they extend a little bit past. I usually make them 10 millimeters long. Yeah, I usually make this part here 10 millimeters and this little part that sticks up 2 millimeters. The arrows, which you draw from where they meet, should be 3 millimeters long and 1 millimeter high. Now, there's a rule, but when we dimension things, it's hard for you to mention this because I haven't given to us. I'm going to say toaster is about 300 millimeters. I'll just take a guess. 350 millimeters, right? We always write our dimensions above the line, right? So even if we're dimensioning here, let's say that this is our dimensions, and again, I'm trying to draw this as thin, dark lines, which is very hard on the whiteboard. So even here, we still write above the line. Yeah, we still write on this side of the line, above the line. Let's say that's 200 millimeters, right? I'm just taking a guess. And we'll say that this here is... a height. Jeez, I haven't left myself much room. We'll say that's 150. And this is 200. Right. Now, there's a bit of room here. So because in this case, right, because we've got 7 marks, I would also be looking for general shape. Right? So if someone drew their toaster like this, right? They're losing a mark because the shape is wrong, right? You haven't got reasonable shape. If someone drew their shape like that, Well, like, that's losing a mark,
That's the
right?
nose.
So there's some attempt to get the shape right. Now, I would say this is another place where, for 7 marks, I would probably be looking at not showing the handle. That's probably bad. Not showing the handle I would say should lose you the mark. But there's 7 marks. There's a lot of marks for drawing question, right? Generally speaking, in the HSC, there'll be a 6-mark question, and they'll want a lot more work than what you've been asked to do here. So that's why I think shape becomes more important. Okay, one last thing. We always write above the line and to the left of the line. So if we were drawing this same dimension here, say we wanted to add a dimension to this location, right? I extend my line almost until it's touching, but not quite touching. So this line here needs to go almost until it's touching, not quite. I draw my 3mm arrows that are 1mm up, and I label that, let's say it's 180. It always writes to the left.